Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Cup Interviews. My name is Jillian Robinson. I am the Associate Artistic Producer here at Cup of Hemlock Theatre. And today I am joined by the extraordinary Alicia Richardson, performer, playwright, voice and dialect coach, lover of laughter and carbohydrates. Alicia encapsulates it all. How you doing, Alicia?
Huh. We were talking about earlier how I had a flurry of different emotions,
Fair.
and the primary one that I felt was nervous. So, a dear friend of mine once said this, and it stuck to me. Uh, I'm just the right amount of terrified.
Nice.
So, I feel this as I work towards my next project, which we'll get into later. But
Yeah.
normally when I'm obsessed with the script and I'm the one writing it, uh, I think about it in the shower, on the subway. Something about it will remind me. I'll be reminded of it in a conversation. I'll have to like quickly write something down on my phone, so it becomes almost an obsession. Like I still, sleep and eat and do all the things. I'm not that bad, but it becomes a bit of an infatuation
Fair.
until I finish the thing. So nervous. Um, also, as previously discussed, I am an American. And so this latest election finds me in some grief.
Yeah.
Ah,
Yeah.
yes.
I feel like, at time of recording and when this episode does go live, this is definitely 2 weeks of collective, not only American, I think global deep breaths and just figuring out our way through the tunnels of the next little while.
Mm-hmm.
As kind of hopefully bleak as that sounded.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I had a number of people who reached out to me, which was very comforting. People from both sides of the border were like, "Hey, you okay?" and checking in. I thought,
Yeah.
okay. And my community really, really stepped up for me in just making sure that I was seen and heard and validated and just given the space to vent
Yeah.
and to express exactly what was on my heart. So I thank everybody in my life who gave me that time and space.
Absolutely. I was sharing with you earlier too, like this week, as dark as it was personally, professionally, I had a lot of wonderful opportunities and light kind of shone my way. And so I think it's just something, especially as artists moving forward, but even just as human beings, really like taking those wins when they come and basking in that light when it shines and trying to spread it and magnetize it to all of those around you. And especially I think as artists, us being vessels of emotions all the time, like it's almost, there's this extra call to duty of really making sure our voices and our projects and our souls are on blast as we kind of figure out the next steps, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Here.
Okay, what a way to sort of just cheers to that as we perfectly go into our icebreaker. I feel like we have like a channel of ice and now we're gonna break it with our what's in our cup little question here.
I
So
love
what do
your
you
mug. Is it personalized?
it is the cup of hemlock mug, the cup.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow. That's so
Yeah.
cool.
Got our logo, and then on the side it just says, the cup, which is the show you're watching or listening to right now.
Wow. That's so cool.
So before we go to my cup, what is in your cup? What are you sipping on today?
Well, this is a cup that I got from a fundraiser I did from the Second City.
Nice.
As for those of you listening, it's a black cup dotted with white speckles.
Nice.
And it says the Second City. And that's the improv comedy incubator where a lot of really cool comedians and improvisers go to cut their teeth, so to speak.
Yeah.
So I just went to the store, to the LCBO, and I bought some Malbec.
Ooh.
So I'm a fan of either a Malbec or a Pinot Grigio. And because it's getting a little ever so slightly chillier, I thought a Malbec would be a nice way to warm myself up.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and then I alternate between that and I like to stay hydrated and I give myself a daily goal. I don't
Nice.
remember how much. I know it's a lot. Um I'm gonna call this a 1.5.
Okay, cool.
I don't know that it's that much. To be honest with you, I'm ashamed to admit I don't fully understand the metric system despite having lived here for as long as I have. So it looks like it's 64 ounces. However many liters that is, I don't know.
Hey, no one's counting. You know what it is? It's the end of the day. If that bottle is empty, then your soul is happy.
Then I've met the goal. Then the cells are hydrated. Every
Yes.
cell needs water. Giving this to
Yes.
my cells.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Back to my the cup. Picking up on your it's getting chillier. I am really into berry herbal teas right now. So
Okay.
I have a raspberry zinger tea happening. You know what's
Ooh.
lovely is that this mug is actually lined black. So like any like dark teas, like red teas don't stain this mug. Well, they might stain it, but I just don't know because it's dark inside.
Mhm.
So yeah, so we've got some blood red raspberry zinger tea.
Ooh, nice.
And then I always have anyone watching or listening a glass of water of some sort. Hydration station is kind of what I say.
Mhm.
But I thought I'd get creative today to kind of complement my raspberry tea. I
Mhm.
squirt some lime juice in here. So
Mhm.
we've got like
Mhm.
lime water and a
Okay.
raspberry tea.
All right.
So that's what we're dealing with today.
Feeling it. Now, am I correct in saying that there's a kind of a top to that water? Did I see that correct? Like there's
So
some sort of a twist off?
There
No,
there
it's just a
usually there usually is with like a straw, but what you maybe are observing is that when the water's a little bit colder, it changes the outside color of the cup. Yeah.
ah.
Mm-hmm. So it makes your water look cool, so make you drink it more, I guess. Yeah. So this if this was ice cold, it probably would be fully blue. I think this is the blue cup. So, but the fact
Interesting.
that it's lukewarmish, but I do have some lime in there, it's making it look green, which is like
Mhm.
limeade. I don't know.
All right, I'm here for this.
It's a potion today. This is what I'm
Ooh.
talking about. Finding the whimsical winds and sunshine in something as small as what is in your cup.
Yeah. Oh, that's so sweet. I like a podcast that always starts with a particular premise, you know?
Yeah.
Because I feel like this is what I've come to love about certain podcasts is that I look forward to their segments. There's
Yeah.
a bit that they do right at the beginning, or there's a bit that they do at the end. I'm like, oh, I love this one. Like, I feel like as an avid fan of podcasts,
Hmm.
I always look forward to the bit.
Yeah.
Always.
And that's us. Our bit is yeah, what's in your cup? What are you
What's in your
what are
cup?
you fueling with? And then something like right if someone brings on like their favorite mug or a mug that they've done something with a theater company or like a favorite
Mhm.
character, it's kind of like a surprise as to kind of what little tidbits you're going to learn even more about the illustrious artists on the other side.
Yeah.
Great. So that's you. You are the illustrious artist that I have the wonderful honor of chatting with today. And our paths have crossed several times in life, Alicia.
Yes.
Like third year, my Hamlet classical project, you were our voice and dialect coach, which is
Yes.
seems like eons ago.
I
And then,
know.
yeah, and then I just feel like our circles have crossed paths either through
Yes.
working with similar folks or like being in
Mhm.
the same rooms. So I'm very glad that today exists because it's about time. I feel like it's like I want a one-on-one with Alicia. We're gonna dig in. We're gonna unpack.
I love
Um,
it.
yeah. So to kick us off, we are gonna talk specifically about an upcoming project, which I won't even
Mhm.
spoiler alert it yet. But to
Yes.
kick us off, tell us about Alicia Richardson. Tell us about yourself.
Mm.
How did you get into the performing arts industry? The floor is yours to get as nitty gritty or broad as you'd like.
Wow. Thank you.
Yeah.
It's been so long since someone's asked me that. And I think the story has evolved into something that I feel is much greater than me.
Mm.
So I think originally when it began, I was 11 years old and I was doing the school plays. And I'm sure I was utter trash. I'm sure I was terrible at it. It's fine. Now, what I did, what I didn't know the business of acting or performing or anything like that. All I knew was it just felt like it was a good time.
Yeah.
I don't really have any other explanation. It was
Yeah.
just a good time. And there was a school play and I auditioned and I got in and I thought, yeah, cool. I didn't really necessarily connect the dots. This would be my career. But even at the age of 11, I had an inkling of something about this felt um, correct.
Mm.
And I use that word very intentionally because uh, there are a number of things that I could have done. And I will be humble, but also accurate in saying that I was quite an excellent student. Like,
That's me too.
I, yeah, there
Yeah.
were a number of fields I could have gone into. I was
Yeah.
excellent in math and particularly in anything involving English or writing whatsoever. So there were a number of paths that I could have gone down.
Mm-hmm.
But if I were to study the intersection of what I enjoy and what I'm good at and what I think I can use to make the world a better place, if I study that Venn diagram,
Yeah.
then what I'll find in the middle is the performing arts.
Oof. Yeah.
So I I knew that I was going to do this for my job when I was 15 because that particular year, so my family had moved around a lot. I was born in Florida, then we moved to Texas, then we moved back to Florida, then we moved back to Texas. So my dad had a job that kept switching him around,
Mm-hmm.
and I was in a school that either I had missed when I had transferred schools. I had missed the cutoff to do any auditions, so I couldn't be in the school play. And so I was also on the basketball team. I'm terrible at it. People say, how do you play basketball?" I say, "Poorly, very poorly." "Are you good at basketball?" "No, I'm terrible." Something I'm very bad at is hand-eye coordination. So if an object is coming towards me, I found it difficult to time the path of my hand to either catch it or hit it or run with. Like, if it's me and a ball and a goal, forget it.
Okay.
Forget it. You will lose. So anyway, but I'm on the basketball team because I wanted something to do with my time. And so I go to see the school play. And I'm in the ninth grade and no, eighth grade. No, I'm in the ninth grade. So it's my first year of high school. And I see a performance of Guys and Dolls at my school. And my friend Genevieve, I'll never forget it, is in this halter dress. So Guys and Dolls is 1940s style. So it's this really sweet halter top dress that cinches at the waist, but it flares out into this lovely bell. And
Mm-hmm.
so every time she spun, the dress would mushroom and blossom out. And then it would just like, it was filled with tulle and other such fabrics. So you would see like the brilliant
Yeah.
display underneath it when she would do her little chaînés or what have you. And the way that her face just lit up. And I remember a distinct feeling of thinking to myself, I'm in the wrong place.
Mm.
It just arrived quietly.
Mm.
And I do remember that there was an interview where Steven Spielberg said this exact same thing. He said, your destiny will whisper to you.
Oh, yeah. Oh my gosh, I have goosebumps. Uh-huh.
It was so simple, but it was just, I'm in the wrong place. Like I wasn't meant to be the one sitting down in the chair.
Right, 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 right.
I was supposed to be the one that was up there. I was in the
Yeah.
wrong place. And that was it. It arrived and it settled in me.
Yeah.
the truth of it. Like, wow, that's actually where I'm supposed to be. I'm in the wrong spot. So with that, I recognized that where I was incorrect. And I needed
Mhm.
to be where that was correct.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I mean, look, there's a whole constellation of reasons why I became an actor, some of which I think stem from me wanting more attention. And listen, I pay a very nice lady a lot of money to talk about why that is. But for the sake of this podcast and the
Yeah.
amount of time that we have, I will give you the spark notes in saying that, sure, this was a vehicle for me to get the love and attention that I felt I didn't get. This was a
Mhm.
way for me to feel special. And if I'm honest, um, the act of witnessing another person and listening to them is a
Mhm.
form of loving them. And when I am on stage or even on screen, I feel as though I get that validation.
Yeah.
And this is
1,000%.
something that it supersedes stage fright. This notion that when I am performing, this means that I have witnesses. I have people who are dedicating a slice of their time to witness me, to listen, to
Yeah.
give me their attention, their audience, but also in a way, their love. I feel like it's an act of love. And if I'm
Mhm.
on stage with another actor, I feel like me giving you my time, my presence, my eye contact, my attention is a form of witnessing you and loving you. And so
Yep.
I definitely wanted to feel that sense of community and connection and this feeling of being special, you know? Um, I don't think I can underestimate that
1,000%.
the performing arts, even if you don't go off and do this for the rest of your life, I think every child should experience it in some way. You don't have to be an actor. Maybe you play the clarinet, or maybe you dance,
Yep.
or I don't know.
Or
It
even
could
you're a
also be
stagehand or, assistant stage manager in something. Yeah.
but there is something about the built-in community aspect. So you're naturally more social. You're
Mhm.
interacting with more people. You're working on those social skills,
Yep.
but also too, if you should choose to be a performer, you're given the platform to be validated and witnessed by people. And
Mhm.
that's something that, God bless all of the parents of this world, because I know that that is such a hard job. The parents of this world might be busy working and holding down the fort and keeping it all together. They might not have the time or space to be really great witnesses.
Yep.
And I'm not going to begrudge all of them for that, but I will say in the performing arts, you get the chance to have more witnesses. You get the
Mhm.
chance to feel treasured and to
Yep.
feel noticed and to feel special. And I think that's ultimately, that is something that really helped to build my self-esteem is I get these moments to feel like I'm special, to feel like I have something that people want to listen to and to validate.
Yeah.
So I think that it's a really great tool for a young developing mind to not only understand social interactions, also understand more emotional intelligence, because as performers, we're asked to tap into different emotional states. So
Yep.
you're more emotionally intelligent. You're definitely more mature, I find, because if you have to collaborate on a group of 10, 12, 50 people,
Yep.
you naturally have to, compromise. You have to be a better communicator. You have to be clear and effective in what you're saying. You have to be
Yep.
more patient. And you have to deal with all these different personalities between
Yep.
director, stagehand, stage manager, crew, cast. You have a lot of people that you have to figure out a way to get along with.
Yep.
And so I think it's a great tool for personal development and social development. So I
Absolutely.
can't I can't stress that enough.
I feel like I've said this a lot of times on the show too, and it seems like such an obvious, but especially when we were talking about, youth absolutely experiencing this. And because I'm a huge advocate of that, I've done a lot of children's theater myself too. And to
Mm-hmm.
have the arts infused in the formative years of a child experience,
Mm-hmm.
I know 1,000% for a fact. I said 1,000% a lot in this episode, but we're going there. Those children will grow up to be successful in whatever they choose to do because they've been exposed to a platform that this is what I mention all the time of, society doesn't allow us to explore the like opposing sides of our emotions a lot of the times, right? You're supposed to act this way, or you're supposed to feel this way, or not so much. Or I feel like we're dictated a lot of what our purpose is as humans. But with art, as you mentioned, emotional intelligence is developed there because we are vessels to kind of have to push the boundaries of our emotions. And it's not pushing the boundaries, it's actually just fully feeling. And I find, having the arts sort of open up our actual authentic selves, sometimes more so than, the everyday life. So having someone in their younger years experience that and sort of realize that and add that to their human tool belt, then they're going to grow up to be more well-rounded human beings. I'm going to strongly say that because I think the arts have the capacity of doing that. Like you just said too, right? The exchange of energy between audience and performer, and the fact that there is a vulnerability there and there is a witnessing and there's that exchange that's sort of on blast in a way. Right. And, I love that you toss it in there, and I'm bringing back something I often say on the show, because it's like the arts definitely do gurgitate well-rounded, healthier humans. I think for sure.
100%.
Yeah.
If nothing else, I like how you touched on. So I have a point to respectfully challenge.
Oh, please.
You touched on this notion that, in the performing arts, you don't necessarily push your emotions, but you just experience them. True, I would say at an elementary level. But once you get into the professional level,
oh yeah,
I would say you're definitely pushing the boundaries. So if I may, let me take out a pen. I'm gonna illustrate what I mean, literally.
Sure.
I love doing this because wait, hold on. I'll grab my pens. Most people don't realize the actual scientific benefit to being a performer. And, had I time and inclination and I was still working as a full-time professor, this would definitely be so much of my research. I think I would probably publish on this. Don't quote me. Maybe I'll be old and gray and one day and I'll be like tired of the grind and then I'll become a professor. Anyway,
let's do it. Yeah.
So normally when we are what is considered regulated, meaning that we are not in a heightened state of emotion in any way whatsoever, we exist in what is known as the window of tolerance, correct? Now, when you are really in a state of what is considered arousal, and not necessarily sexual, but meaning that your nervous system has been activated. So that could be you're frightened, it could be you're angry, what have you. You become what is known as hyper reactive. Okay.
Yep.
So this might result in we'll just say that much. Outbursts. You may throw things. I don't know. You just have these ways that you're like, all right, things are fired up. Right? Now, you also have the opposite, which is known as hypo reactive.
Yeah.
So this is when and these are tears, by the way.
Yeah.
So this is when you're despondent, You are to yourself. You are in a freeze state,
Mm-hmm.
not to be confused with the fight or flight state when one is
Mm-hmm.
hyperreactive. You're in the freeze state, hyporeactive. You are withdrawn. Maybe you become depressed and you're pushing away and you social
Mm-hmm.
interactions. Now, here's where this becomes very fascinating, both from a scientific and a performance perspective. Your window of tolerance increases if you can sustain an emotional state without going into this or this. If
Wow.
you can allow yourself to experience rage, but you don't hit somebody and you don't punch a wall, you can feel the emotion
Yeah.
without letting the emotion control you. This means you remain in the window where you can tolerate but not react.
Yeah. Wow. This is Alicia Richardson absolutely mapping out my psyche right now, ladies and gentlemen. I'm learning so much about myself.
Also, too, if you can be a performer who can tap into sorrow, you can experience the sadness.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
true,
yeah.
you might cry, you might have an emotional response to it. However, you don't have to then go on a bender. You
Yeah.
don't have to curl into a ball and not talk to anybody for a few days. You don't have to withdraw from the course. Like you can be in an acting class and then
Yeah.
experience sadness, but you don't have to say, well, now I'm becoming hyporeactive, which means I have to shut everything down and go into a functional freeze.
Yeah.
So thereby you can tolerate
Yeah.
the sadness, but you are not being debilitated by it.
Yeah.
So when that happens, you now, where's my other pen? So you take some acting classes, or I don't know, it could be the speech classes as well. You could be training to, become a better public speaker, like anything that could potentially bring up emotions in you.
Yeah.
So you've done some training in emotional work and you have to then perform it and be witnessed by people, right? So then if you can stay with it, your window of tolerance increases.
Yeah.
So you can go a little bit further without getting into this.
Yeah.
Go a little bit further without getting into this. Now, here's what's not fun. It's not gonna feel good. It's
Yeah.
gonna feel like it feels. So if you are rehearsing in a state of rage, you will fully experience the rage. And it might differ from person to person, but you will have a physiological response. You will, for me, for example, my forehead and chest start to feel hot. I will feel tingling in my fingertips. You will fully physiologically experience that emotion.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes the experience of an emotion in real time does not feel good.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It can really suck. Okay. But again, tolerate. If you
Yeah.
can tolerate it, you can sustain it.
Mm-hmm.
And then eventually you start to broaden that window.
Yeah.
And I think that makes you much more equipped to handle whatever life throws at you. And I think it makes you a less reactive person. So
Yep.
you're less likely to snap at other people and react poorly the moment that you experience an emotion. You can tap into it and go, oh, I feel that sinking feeling in my chest.
Mm-hmm.
That's sadness. I know what to do with this.
Yeah.
And so this is my thesis.
I love it.
This is my personal lived experience. I stand behind it. It has served me well. So
Yeah.
for anybody who tries to discredit the performing arts, I like to draw them that chart and say, well, this is what it's actually doing.
Yeah.
Scientific.
Yeah. All the folks that are like, it's so easy to be an actor. I'm like,
No,
we are broadening and massaging and ricocheting all over the map there. Yeah.
No.
1,000% not.
Yeah, it's hard. It doesn't feel good.
Yeah.
It doesn't in the moment. It will, if you're doing a scene of deep grief, That doesn't feel good.
No.
That
Yeah.
feels terrible in the moment. But then afterward, there's this sense of catharsis where you're like, oh, it's now left my body because I got to fully exercise. But in the moment, ugh, no.
Yeah. But it feels good when that is exercised out, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. So 15-year-old Alicia had this epiphany of I'm in the incorrect position.
Yes.
Up on stage is correct. Where did that lead you next? What is your like performing arts trajectory?
Oh, yeah. Well, from there, I majored in theater in my undergrad. So I
Great.
then went on I studied theater in high school. And then I got involved in a local theater company. So there used to be a theater company called Florida Stage in a place called Manalapan.
Mm.
And unfortunately, they're no longer operating, and it's now, I think, an art gallery. But back in the day, there was this fully functioning theater company that offered, youth programming. And so I would sometimes be a part of stage readings and new play development workshops. And so I credit them as that was the first professional theater company that gave me a contract with my name on it. Like, oh, it's so exciting. This
Yeah.
is the contract. It's got my name on it. I was 17. I was 17 when that happened. And that was my first time doing a staged reading where a professional theater company gave me money. I mean, it was only a day of my life, but that was the coolest.
Yeah.
And then they also had this playwriting competition. And little did I know that would also set me on the path of one of the other branches of my career. But I had entered this contest, and you could win a couple $100. Like I think the grand prize was $500,
Cool.
and second place was $250, and I think third place was $100. So I had entered the contest. I think you could be between like 13 and 18, and so I would enter every year. By my junior year of high school, I got runner up, which was so cool. I was like, I got a couple $100. And then by my senior year, I'd finally gotten to be one of the finalists. So
Yes.
I got the $500 prize. It was so, so cool. And then we got published in an anthology that used to be at my local library, which was also surreal. It's in an anthology called Dream It Up, Write It Down. And there are these volumes that the Florida Stage company would publish every year. I don't know if it's still there, but still, that's wicked.
Yeah.
So I would put playwriting on pause for a time just because my undergraduate in theater. So I went to Florida State University in Tallahassee, Florida, and my God, that program was so intense that there was hardly any time to do anything else between classes during the day and rehearsals at night. You know the drill.
Oh, I know. Theater and Drama Studies alumni over here. Balancing U of T and Sheridan. Yep.
So there was no time to work on a script during that entire period of 4 years.
Yep.
So I never really thought about being a professional writer. I just thought this is kind of fun, but I didn't really think about it much. So after I graduated, I did my first gig, which is with a company that's still around today. They're called the National Players. They're based out of a place called Olney, Maryland, which is about 40 minutes north of Washington, D.C. And they have a traveling Shakespeare troupe. So I was a part of their tour 61. I think they're on tour 75, 77. No, that can't be.
Nice.
It might be more. It might be more. Anyway, so I was a part of their Much Ado About Nothing, and also played in rep with Lord of the Flies. And
Cool.
it was my first time. So they made me the lead of Lord of the Flies, much to my horror. I was like, are you sure? I think there's been a mistake.
They're like, Alicia, we're going to challenge your window of tolerance with this
Yes.
role.
But if any of you are familiar with the Lord of the Flies, that character, I think they're all supposed to be young boys, but they had changed some of the genders of the characters. And so instead of Ralph, they made my character Rachel. And that was fantastic. That was my first time to get to play a role of that magnitude.
Mm-hmm.
And I did that. I bounced around quite a bit and did a lot of non-union things that did not pay very well. Now, here's where it gets wacky. So, my partner at that time and I had graduated, and we had some debt, as well, almost everybody does.
Mm-hmm.
And so he was curious to travel the world and try to pay it off through teaching English abroad. So at this time, this was 10, 2011,
Okay.
2010, 2011. And there was this big incentive in South Korea and China and Japan to get native English speakers to help make their students bilingual.
Yeah.
And so we found a program in South Korea that we really enjoyed, and we applied and we got into that. So we moved there, and I was kind of in a rut, and I was down and out because I hadn't booked a gig in a while, and I didn't know what the hell I was going to do with myself. And I was broke, and I needed dental care. There are all these things just piling up that I'm like, as a broke out of work actor, I couldn't even afford to take care of my teeth.
Yeah. Right.
So it was one of those judgment calls. And I really encourage y'all, for anybody who's watching or listening, yo, if you're aching, and my toothless teeth, I had two teeth that were throbbing. If you are in pain, if you are aching, take the 9 to 5.
Yeah.
Just for now. Just for like 3 months to get those benefits, or maybe 6 months to pay off some debts, or maybe a year or two to pay for a car or whatever. Like, there is no shame
Yeah.
whatsoever in you saying to yourself, I love being an actor, but I am in pain.
Mm-hmm.
And that, I think, health takes priority over my dream.
Oh,
The dream
yeah.
will be there. The dream will be there. There's no need for you to suffer.
Well, and we need our vessel to execute the dream. So if your vessel is broken, then how are you supposed to tie the knots of the dream?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So before, in anticipation of going to move abroad for a little bit, I got a 9 to 5 and I fixed my teeth.
Nice. We love it.
I did what I had to
Yes. Check mark.
do. So then we went, and it was great. I got to pay off my student loan debts. I got to travel around to see China and Japan and Indonesia and Thailand and all these various cities of South Korea. So that was amazing. And then I had a nice little nest egg at the end of it. So that was for 2 years actually. So it was quite a bit of time. But that's how much, like, year one was just, we're gonna get out of debt. So all of my undergraduate debt was a thing of the past.
Great.
And then year two was to save up for my nest egg because I didn't know what was going to happen next. But I had this notion, and looking back on it, it was maybe one of the smartest things I've ever done. And I tell people, especially my students, all the time, if you can figure out this one thing, you can continue to work. If you can figure out a niche skill set that you can not only do, but teach,
Yeah.
you are set. Because this industry is so broad and it is constantly evolving.
Mm-hmm.
So if you, within this broad ass industry, if you can take a little tiny pin and go there,
Yeah.
that's something that I can become an expert. That's something that I can achieve mastery in. And then you can figure out a way to translate that to other sectors.
Yeah.
That is the money. So here's how mine
sure.
worked. I knew that I didn't want to wait tables indefinitely. I knew that I didn't want to work at a clothing store, be a telemarketer, do any of those other random and unfulfilling soul-sucking things in my pursuit of being an actor.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought strategically long term, how am I going to earn a living in this industry while still practicing some form of art?
Yeah.
Even if I'm not the one that's doing the acting, Can I figure out something that's acting adjacent? Can I be
Mhm.
in the room
Mhm.
somehow? And so what occurred to me, so I was living in a city called Busan, South Korea, and I was doing community theater because I find a way. I always
Mhm.
and they were doing performances in this outdoor amphitheater space, and no one understood how to project. And even though my own voice teacher would slap me on the wrist, like, we don't project, we resonate. Like, yes, yes, okay. They weren't properly resonating, right? Because I was in the back
Mhm.
and I couldn't hear them.
Right.
So I go to the artistic director and I'm like, what kind of warm up is your cast doing? And he's like, oh, we don't do a warm up. I'm like, because I was in the back and I couldn't hear you. And so I volunteered with this company just to lead their vocal warm ups, as I did many times in my undergraduate.
Mhm.
So by the time I got to my senior year of my undergrad, I had done vocal warm ups so many times that I knew it back and forth.
Yeah.
So shout outs to my original voice teacher. His name is Guy Molnar. And then my
Nice.
second voice teacher is named Yvette Morley.
Mhm.
So, kudos to both of those cool kids. Hope you're still at it.
Nice.
So I took all of the training that I had done up until that point, and then I showed it to a group of actors, some of whom had done a little theater, some of whom hadn't.
Mm.
And it was just this ragtag group that they were fresh in terms of like, nobody in that group was somebody who had trained in theater for the past 4 years like I had. They were just people that were just interested in performing and liked it. And a bunch of expats who had nothing to do on the weekends. So they just got together and started doing plays.
Yeah.
And something else clicked. So again, I'm standing in a circle and all the actors in the company are in the circle with me and we're all facing each other. And we're just we're resonating, I think if I recall, hmm, I think we're just
Mhm.
humming. And then eventually just like humming onto a sound. And then this really beautiful thing happened where they created a perfect harmony. I'm not kidding. There were like three different notes. I said, do whatever note feels good for you.
Mm.
And it coalesced into this beautiful three-part harmony
Wow.
without me doing anything. And then I looked up because they had their hands on their chest, like feeling their chest resonant. And I opened my eyes and I looked around and saw everyone so calm, so peaceful, and so present,
Yeah.
so in the moment and so connected. And everybody standing with 2 feet solid on the ground, upright. No one had this sense of like, oh, what was me? Don't look at me. I'm so bad at this. But it was just, hey, I'm feeling my body. I'm here. I'm present. I'm self possessed.
Yeah.
And I looked around and I thought, this feels correct.
Yeah.
This also feels correct.
Mhm.
So that's when I had this notion. Again, the smartest thing I've ever done is I said, if there's a way that I could do this, then I think I can be okay. Even if I'm not an actor, if I do this in between jobs, if I figure out a way that I can do this,
Yeah.
this is fascinating. It's fun. It's joyous.
Mm.
There's something about this that feels correct.
Yeah.
And so again, that Venn diagram of, am I good at it? Yes, I'm granular, I'm specific, I'm nurturing, and I'm present and I'm energized. I'm very good at what I do.
Mhm.
Is it something that I enjoy? Absolutely. So much joy I get from this. Is it something that helps people? 1000.
Mhm.
So once again, I saw that bullseye and I was like, all right, I think this is another thing that we can add to our book.
Yes.
I think
Yes.
so. So I went about researching places all over the place. And again, this long-term partnership that I was in, he and I were avid travelers. And he's like, he still had a bit of debt. And if I'm not mistaken, back then, if you didn't live in the country, you could defer. So he's like, ah. And so I was looking at schools all over the place. I was looking at Central School of Speech and Drama in England. There was also a school in Australia. There was, gosh, what was it? University of Calgary? I could be
Okay.
wrong. And York University here in Toronto. And so, and then I also thought about UC Irvine in Irvine, California. And, oh boy, what was the other one? Virginia Commonwealth University. So I had applied to a couple of different places and I had auditioned a couple of places. And when I auditioned at York, the faculty there was so warm. They were just so lovely. And I got this, and to this day, I describe it as a warm bubble. This was a group of people that were very calm, peaceful, present. And later I would find that the whole faculty, like they either did, one faculty member did Tai Chi, another one did yoga, another one did, was a yoga instructor and did Pilates. So they all did movement modalities. And in addition to whatever they taught.
Yeah.
So the reason that they were so warm and present in their bodies is because they were all moving and very active all the time.
Yeah.
And that felt different than some of the other institutions where the faculty was frazzled and overwhelmed and always late and, chugging coffees and, just overwhelmed and irritable. And well, most of them were quite lovely, but it was just this sense of like, they were on the hamster wheel and there was no slowing down and it was just chaos and pandemonium at every turn. And then I got to York and they were just like, welcome. And
Yeah.
I thought, yeah,
That's correct.
That's correct. I want to study here where I feel like everyone has the time and space to give me the one-on-one feedback that I need. Because the cohort was, I want to say 12 or 13 people. So it wasn't like a big 50 plus person cohort where it's just a face in the crowd, but it's like the 12 people and like 7 members of faculty. There's enough for, my advisor who was my advisor? Oh, Enos. But then at one point, I got a little bit of advising from Michael Gray Eyes, who, if you don't know him, he's now a legend.
Yes.
But he used to be a professor. And so it was enough. The faculty to student ratio was great. And then again, just, I cannot say enough about the feeling of something being correct.
Yep.
I didn't want to be in a big institution where nobody gave a shit, where everybody was too busy or too tired.
Yep.
And having spent the last 2 years paying off my debt,
yep.
ain't no way in hell I'm going back to somewhere that's going to cost me the cost of a mortgage. There's no way in hell I'm doing that. If I just went through all of this trouble to get out of debt, I am not going to repeat that pattern again.
Yep.
So affordability was a big factor. Yes. Did I think fleetingly about places like Tisch School of NYU Tisch or Yale or all those, DePaul is another big one that's in Chicago. And you know what? Sure. Then I realized some of them were charging $50,000 to $60,000 US in tuition. So if you go to a school like Columbia and you're paying $60K, that's just for the privilege of walking into the building.
Yeah.
You still have to afford the cost of living in New York City.
Yep.
So you're looking at a cool $100K easy.
Yeah.
Per year for a 3-year program.
Yeah.
Now listen, you might be really successful like Viola Davis, who went to Juilliard, and you are in a position to pay off that debt. But I mean, for every Viola Davis, There's
Yeah.
probably a couple dozen other somebodies that don't nobody know what their name is who also went to Juilliard. There's somebody who went to Juilliard that's working at the Cheesecake Factory right now.
Yeah.
I'll bet actual dollars.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
I'm not going out like that. So I went to York and I got my MFA of acting as well as a concurrent diploma of voice teaching. And so this is how I was able to get the training as a voice and dialect coach and also do some more acting training. And then with my MFA, the Master's of Fine Arts is considered the terminal degree of the performing arts. And once you have the terminal degree of any field, you are now qualified to teach at a university or a college or a trade school. And so from there, something really magical happened where I was on a work visa. And then I started to get a little work and it started to snowball. And I was like, I got an agent, which I didn't expect. I was just sort of throwing it out there. And then I got an agent. Didn't expect it.
Mm-hmm.
I explained it. I was like, I'm not from here. I'm not technically a citizen. I'm on a visa, and she's like, let's roll the dice, see where it goes.
Great.
And then eventually, it took some years though, I will say, but I started to work. I got a little bit of work at York University. I was just covering for professors who needed it. And then eventually they put me on the payroll. Then I got a little bit of part-time. I got to teach 2 classes at George Brown College. And then I got the call from Sheridan because Malie Hutton was my professor at York University. And so they were scouting for people with specialized skill sets. And because I'd had a specialized skill set, they're like, all right, we know where to place you. So little did I know that would really come in handy because they already had combat, they already had movement, they already had all the other niches covered, but they had the one little niche to fill. Mm-hmm. And that's where I came in. Yeah.
To Hamlet.
Oh, yeah. Well, I was working there for a little bit before that.
Yes, before that, yeah.
Each year it was really fun because each year there would be a number of shows that they needed coaching or voice and dialect coaching on, and it was a ton of fun. And so I was coaching for a while before I really got acting work. I was let me think. Soul Pepper was doing a production of Ma Rainey's Black Bottom that I had auditioned for, and I was just so gutted when I didn't get it. However, the director of it, Mumbi, she reached out to me because she's like, I hear you have training in this, and I really, really need you. Because it's an August Wilson play, and a number of the characters are Black Southerners. And so there are specific things that, Black Canadian actors obviously didn't get this kind of training and how to sound like a Black Southerner because their dialect classes mostly consisted of RP and I don't know, Irish and French or something, which don't get me wrong. There are Black Brits and there are Black Francophones. Mm-hmm. Have I played them? No, not yet. Not yet. Yeah. So I've been called to coach at Soul Pepper and then at Shaw. And then at one point, Stratford wanted to work with me, but I was like, I don't want to go away for a full year just to be your coach. So I've been trying, though I know it's like paradigm shifting. I've been trying to float the idea that I can be more than one job.
Yep.
And so far, like, I'm not going to be in Stratford for a year just so I can tell people how to talk. That's wild. Because I have a really bustling and fulfilling life in Toronto. But I'm like, now, if you put me in your season.
Yeah.
And then I just so happen to be the dialect coach on another show. Well, that's fine. That's fine. Now, they haven't entertained that yet.
Can I just a brief little insert here?
You may.
Canadian theater needs to accept that we all have to wear hats. It's the only way we can survive across the country. We are performers, we are playwrights, we are directors, we are stage managers.
Yes.
We can be all of them at the same time. Obviously, that's absurd to do that all at the same time. But there needs to be more of an acceptance of I can identify as a performer and a stage manager, and both of those fields are not going to suffer for it.
Yes. Thank you.
That is the end of my insert, because I think that is incredibly real. And it's something that it shouldn't be seen as so separate.
Yes.
Like it should be cultivated and almost like, you know, I don't know, or just our wearing of many hats and well-roundedness of performers, that especially because Canada has so fewer theater opportunities than somewhere like the States, for instance. We have to kind of dabble in all of the fields to stay within the orb of theater. Our multiple titles just need to be honored, and there needs to be a sort of disintegrating of you're only allowed to be one. Or if you do too much of one, look out, because maybe you won't be seen as the other one. Like, it's like, no, we should be able to just bop around, take stage management contract here, act here, playwright for this thing here. And I feel like it's slowly getting into this person can do 3 things. I feel like you are a perfect candidate of this. Like, you are an amazing playwright and astonishing performer, and you're a coach.
Thank you.
So like we're getting there, but I don't know. I just feel like I just wanted to insert that. I'm like, we need to just be able to exercise all of the hats that we can, and without feeling like we have to limit ourselves, you know?
And I think what you bring up is an interesting fallacy of many humans, is our inability to hold 2 truths at the same time. And just because 2 truths are different, I don't think it makes them dichotomous. I think you can be, as you've said, a multi-hyphenate who happens to be good at more than one thing. Now, I myself, speaking of multi-hyphenates, I write when I don't have a ton of acting work. And then I get acting work, and then I do put the script to the side, and then I go through another lull, and then I pick that script back up.
Yeah.
If you were to ask me this many years ago, I would tell you that I'm a much better actor than I'm a writer. But today I would tell you I might be as good a writer as actor. I might be a little bit better of a writer than actor. I don't really know anymore. So my writing career was me throwing pasta at the wall and me applying to every playwriting unit and development unit and, creators reserve, like anything that was a group or a grant, I applied.
Right.
Usually each year, if I'm not mistaken, it might have changed, but for the recommender grants for theater creators, for the Ontario Arts Council, I think the year that I applied for the most, the maximum was 10. You could do 10 applications, and I did all 10.
Yeah.
And I got 5. It wasn't half bad. And then another year I got like 3. But each time I would just float. I would float an idea, would pitch it. And then usually at least 1 or 2 companies would give me a little bit of seed money to then develop a script. And then I was a part of Obsidian Theater's playwriting unit. I was in Cahoots Theater. They have this creation unit called Hot House. I did development with the Driftwood Theater Company. And then I got a residency with Young People's Theater because I asked. Like, seriously? I'm going to tell you something. You'd be surprised how many things you can get if you just simply directly ask for it.
Yep.
So I floated this wacky idea to YPT that I wanted to write a play about a talking mango tree. And would they help me?
Sorry.
And they said, Of course we will.
Yeah.
So the first thing that they did was I was one of the selected playwrights for the Ontario Arts Council grants. And then after the grant, what I found fascinating, most companies who give you the grant, they just go, great job. And then they disappear into the ether. And YPT actually sends you a nice little letter in the mail. It's so sweet. So at the time, but this was like pre-panorama, so it might have changed.
Mm-hmm.
But they send you an actual snail mail, little envelope. You open it up. We're so glad to award you this grant money. And then I thought, I don't know what this will mean, but I'm going to try to talk to them because I'm so grateful for this. And it was so sweet of them to do this. And so I reached out to Stephen Colella, who still works there. Shout out. He's a great dude.
Mm-hmm.
Stephen Colella is still there, the assistant artistic director. And I said I would love to chat because I'm really touched. I'm really glad that you reached out. And I just have questions about creating theater for young audiences because it was my first theater for young audiences play. And so we sat down and we had a chat and it went really well. And I went about drafting more pages based on their feedback because I said to them, well, I got the card, but I want to know more, because you've said that you enjoy the piece, but you haven't said how or why. And I want to improve, but if all you've given me is cash, which, hey,
Yeah.
you've given me cash.
Yeah.
But that won't make the play better. It will just feed me as I write it.
Right.
So can I make the play better?
Fair, yeah.
So then we sat down and we discussed it, and they gave me this, free session of dramaturgy between Stephen Colella and Alan McInnes, the former artistic director of YPT. And so we sat down and I developed and we iterated on, what it could look like and how it could work. And then after that, I thought, but why does it have to be it? That I had this one meeting and then I go and write it. And is that it? Like, I don't know. I wanted more. So I reached out again and I said, I don't know how this is going to work, but is there a world in which I meet with you regularly, like maybe quarterly, and we just discuss the draft as it develops? I mean, Stephen is a dramaturg. He's a dramaturg and director and, artistic director, but he works as a dramaturg sometimes. So I said, I really value what you can offer.
Yeah.
I don't want this to be the end.
Mm-hmm.
And so we then set up another meeting where we sat down and I said, okay, if I work with you next season, can I be an artist here? Can I be in residency with you? And they said, yeah. I mean, I asked.
Yeah, fair.
I said, can I be your artist in residence? Can I do that? Because I like working with you. You're smart and capable and so well versed. I would benefit tremendously from working with you.
Mm-hmm.
Can I do that for longer than just this one instance? And they said, yeah, because I asked.
Yeah. Yeah. It seems so simple, but going back to like us humans, I feel like there's like that barricade, right? Of like, oh, like there's this process you have to go through. No, sometimes you just got to straight up ask. Because that's actually an interview I just, it's out on the social media pages as this interview goes live with Scott Allen, theater composer, songwriter. He said that too. He's like, I wanted Lea Salonga to sing my songs. I sent 53 emails. Do you think if I stopped at 52, I would have not gotten her to sing one of my songs? So it's the fact of like, we have to ask, we have to prod, because what's the worst that can happen? He's saying. And I'm like, true. It sounds so simple, like, but they're really the worst thing is, oh no, or we don't have that space for you. But
yeah,
you have to ask.
You have to ask.
That's the thesis as we round out 2024. We have to ask.
So
yeah,
I've got a number of residencies and development units because I asked.
Yeah, I love that.
That's it.
Can we stay at the mango tree for a moment
Of
and
course.
talk a bit about Sweeter? Because I just talked about the end of 2024. Sweeter is coming up on the end of 2023, right?
Oh
That
yes.
rounded out December. So
Oh.
myself and Ryan of the Cup, we got a
Mhm.
chance to see it. We saw it because we knew you were obviously helming it, and really good friends with Alicia Plummer, who played the
Mhm.
lead there. Um, and so obviously we saw it for leisure. We didn't see it for the Cup. We saw it just for
Yes.
theater goers.
Yes.
And we were absolutely astonished by
Oh.
everything. The script, the perform. I mean,
Oh.
some of the best performers on
Oh.
our stages
Oh.
got to speak your
Blessed.
words, which are amazing.
Yes.
Yeah, it was such a beautiful space, and the like utilization of the Aki studio was
Mhm.
I still have the warmth of like the psych, right? That orange hue. And
Oh.
anyways, it's stuck with me for the year. So
Wow.
yeah. Can you and I've also done a ton of TYA myself too, right? So I
Yes.
was sitting there like a kid in a candy shop, like
Oh.
not only watching some of the best performers perform this piece, but also it's a TYA piece. So I just have like my heart is like always connected to children, just as Jill in general. I've worked with a lot of kids as well alongside theater. So it
Mhm.
just was such we actually got to see um it was a weekday performance. So there were schools, like there were kids
Mhm.
in the audience too. So
Mhm.
that magnified the experience as well, right? Seeing it through their eyes. Whew, I'm getting teary. Um, so please, can you just talk about Sweeter a little bit? I feel like I want to shed some Sweeter light for the
Of
Cup.
course.
Because you ended
Sweeter.
up, Cahoots was involved as well, right? Like,
Yes.
so yeah, what's the
I
journey?
I developed Sweeter. I was originally in Obsidian Theater's playwriting unit, and just as a one-off, the then dramaturg Mel Haig, who is now the artistic director of Factory,
Yeah.
she gave me this assignment to emulate Susan Laurie Park's 365, which was
Mm.
a project of hers where she wrote a tiny play every day
That was
for a
my
week.
fourth year show. What
Yes,
of my theater
365.
school?
I
Yeah.
remember it. So I was tasked to do just 7 plays in 7 days. And one of the pieces that I wrote was Sweeter. And I'm so grateful for that exercise because she also encouraged me. She's like, theater doesn't have to be linear, theater doesn't have to be realistic. She's like, I really challenge you for at least one of these of the 7 plays that it takes place outside of the scope of your own human experience. So is there something that you can use that serves as a metaphor?
Yeah.
And so I wanted to try to encapsulate the experience of what it felt like to be in a Black body. And I had this notion to translate it through either an animal or some sort of a living thing. I didn't know what it would be at the time. And to this day, I don't really know why it was a tree, but it just was. And I think in retrospect, it was because I wanted it to be sweet. And I
Mm.
wanted this tree to be like, vivacious and juicy and exciting. And I think about how mangoes are that for me and how they're very rich and ripe and how they're so colorful.
Yeah.
And when I think of that, I automatically think of being a Black woman and how I feel like we're all larger than life and how I feel like we give life and we're so nourishing and so we provide shelter and protection to each other.
Mhm.
So and then I don't know why her best friend was a 7-year-old little girl, but you know, again, I pay a lady a lot of money to talk to about these things. I think without realizing it, that was me talking to my inner child and saying,
Yeah.
this is the way in which you will find healing,
Mm.
that there will be an extension of you through this piece. And you will get to experience the kind of love and trust and joy that you have wanted. And I tell people all the time I'm not sure if Sweeter occurred to me or through me. That
Mm-hmm.
I think there was something else in me that had these ideas that I myself didn't understand at the time. I was like, I think I see this image if I picture it in my brain of like this tree and then she's talking to this girl. I didn't know. I just, I had this notion that wouldn't that be cool? I think that's fun. I think that's
Yeah.
interesting. But in a weird way, I think it occurred through me that these ideas feel like they're bigger than me
Mm-hmm.
because I would later go on to research tales from the African diaspora that happened during the time period that Sweeter is set in, which is set in 1887. And wouldn't you know it, there's a bunch of tales of talking rabbits and talking trees and even talking like gardening shears and equipment around farms. And so many stories that are set on farms or in nature. And listen, I
Yeah.
don't understand it. And I don't care.
Yeah.
I
No, yeah.
don't care. But it was weird because it was almost as if some ancestor of mine thought of that in 1887, but the story
Right.
didn't arrive until 2023.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's weird. So many things I couldn't explain. Like the sun, there's a character that is the sun.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I just thought, that sounds nice.
See?
I like the sun, and now the sun can talk and sing and dance.
Such a, like, that character, like, washes the whole, like, it really is like a mother figure for the whole piece.
Oh,
Like, that sounds fun. I'm like, that, the sun had me weeping.
yes. And then the son ends up being the maternal figure that helps the lead character through her grief. Like,
Yes.
well, I don't know why. It just occurred. I was like, I think that this feels correct.
Yes. There
I don't
was
know
even
why.
like an extension of like the sun being sad and like seasonal affective disorder.
Yes.
That's Ryan and I were like, the layers. The sun is sad. And as we're doing this interview in November right now, about to go into this seasonal affective disorder, we were like, I don't know. And also on this note too of like feeling correct, I can't believe I did not mention this earlier, but Emma Jade Sims, who plays the tree, Emma Jade and Alicia have been on the Cup since the very beginning of this of the Cup of Hemlock, like way back, even during the pandemic. So again, Ryan and I watching, like you said, like this tree with a 7-year-old, and it being human beings, brilliant actors that have been in our orbs too, and seeing their relationship, and then knowing that you were the playwright too. There was, I know I talked to all three of you outside of it very briefly. And I was again talking about a moment that's correct. Like all three of these women have been in the orb of my life in some shape or form. To see that piece come to life, like it was just, again, talk about correct, talk about, and also going to a show with a school showing so that there were the proper audience or like the demographic that it's for, and having that extension, like definitely my highlighted theater experience of 2023. Is Sweeter, like, is there more life to that piece? Like, do you have companies that want to do it, or like schools, or?
I pitched it a couple of times. Unfortunately, fortunately / unfortunately, the feedback I get is this is a beautiful script. And it's too many people and it costs too much money. We can't do it, but we love it. We wish you the best. We're so excited for you to find somebody else. So yeah, I've gotten some really gorgeous, lovely feedback from artistic directors who read it, and they think it's good, but they're like, times are tight, and we're not gonna.
Right.
We can't. And I get it.
Yeah.
I'm not mad. I don't have any pitches lined up in the coming weeks because, as you know, I'm working on another project. But listen, Sweeter is not going anywhere. I still have it.
Yep.
I know that. I mean, I think probably the next iteration will also have to be a co-pro. So the first one was the co-pro between Rosneath and Cahoots.
Yeah.
Probably the next iteration will be another co-pro.
Yeah.
I just have to find 2 companies that are willing to do it.
Yeah.
And I'll sort it out.
Well, ask. You'll like.
Ask. Hey,
Yeah.
listen, I'll keep going.
Yeah.
I'll
Seriously.
keep going. I tell people all the time, and I say this with humility, but also certainty. Sweeter is the best thing I've ever written so far. Now, maybe I'm going to write something better. Maybe. But I mean, that's the best thing I've made because I don't feel that it was completely mine.
Fair.
I feel like, again, some angel, spirit, inspiration, ancestor whispered in my ear while I slept and told me what to write. And I woke up the next day or stayed up till 3 a.m. And suddenly it was like, yes. And then the sun comes in and starts dancing. What? Okay. I'm just gonna.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know where the ideas came from.
Yeah.
So because it was not entirely me, I think it turned out better because I didn't dictate it. I didn't go, that's ridiculous. That doesn't make sense. This is strange. That's strange. I just allowed whatever weirdness was in there to just be weird.
Yeah. Just be weird. That's what we need to do. Yes.
Just be weird. And also too, the reason that Sweeter is the best thing I've ever written is because Sweeter is much bigger than just what I want. Sweeter is about, especially young Black children, getting to see a story that looks like them and also sounds like them. I'm from the American South, so it's written phonetically in our dialect. So getting to see and hear a story that reflects us.
Yeah.
In all of our brilliant, messy, complicated glory. That's something that I did not get. So when I was the age of my nephew Jordan, who at the time that I began writing Sweeter was 7. And so the lead character is also 7. At the time when I was 7, I never saw anything like this. And even growing up, I think the first time I saw a high school production of A Raisin in the Sun when I was 18. And that was the first time that I really witnessed stories of Blackness on a stage. I was 18. The first time I got to see it. So I just wanted there to be no excuse. I wanted people to be able to access this whenever I do. When time and place shall serve and I can get it published and I can get it distributed. I don't want anyone to say, oh, well, we don't have anything. We can't program anything. No, now you have at least one that you can say you do have an example. You can't say that, well, we don't have any. What are we going to No.
Yeah.
So that's my mandate as an artist, my mandate. And this is literally in grant applications that I have won, is to melanate the mainstream.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Melanate
Melanate it. You don't get to tell me that there's no resource. You don't get to say, we tried to program more work for Black artists and Black people and people of color. We just couldn't find absolutely. No. I'm going to create more and more and more of it. So you can say, oh, well, here's the whole catalog.
Yeah.
You don't get to say that. Not on my watch.
No. And like I said, the audience that Ryan and I were a part of, I'm not sure which school it was, but there were so many kids in the audience that were resonating and relating to, the folks on stage. And I also want to commend the writing and the direction of this piece. Again, having done a lot of 2IA myself, I feel like 2IA can get such a almost like a bad rap of, being delicate, right? For the demographic or not, kind of being seen as like cheap art because it's for kids. And it's like, no, we're past that now. Kids nowadays are exposed in the palm of their hand to whatever they want, whenever they want as young of an age as sometimes like 3 years old. And so like when we're bringing, certain stories and even just broadly vibes to the stage, they can go far. Kids can take it. Kids can understand it. And I just feel like too with this piece, like even Ryan and I as adults were getting emotional and invested in the edge of our seats, and to feel that happening with the children too. Like, because some of the moments were very visceral and very raw and very paid homage to, 1887 down in the South, like this, and the kids were understanding of it. Like, that's where I feel like even we're coming like a long way from as well. Of there's TYA is getting a little bit more, real and true. We're not like tying it up with a bow or packaging it a certain way, and the kids are responding to that reality. Like, we don't have to hold kids' hands. Like, they are smarter than us. They can handle more than us a lot of the times. And
And okay, this is gonna take a turn. And I need you to buckle up.
Okay, I'm buckled.
This was also a part of the grant application that I wrote that earned Sweeter some funding. Is I said, I am not going to sugarcoat the reality of being Black in America.
Yeah.
I am not going to write a story that's only smiles and lullabies, that does not prepare children for what they're going to face.
Yeah.
That is not the story I'm going to tell them. I don't think we live in that world. I don't.
No, we don't.
I don't know anyone who does, but I'm saying I don't.
Mm-hmm.
Now listen, there are a number of children's stories that, to your point, they sanitize, and they shield children from the truth. And sure, there is a market for that, because it's entertainment as escapism, and you just want something that's cute and fun and nice, and something that makes
the song and dance. Yeah,
that's fine. That's fine. I'm saying I am not interested in doing that, because that's not the truth. And that's not something that I want to, that's not a story I want to give to young Black children, because I don't think that that's the world that they live in. That's not the world that I live in. And I'm like, real talk, if we can discuss the ways in which being Black are going to affect you. But I said it in another time period. I did use some historical fact, but there are going to be issues that you have regardless of what you do. And there's going to be unfairness. There's going to be colorism. There's going to be ways that you might not have as much money or as much access or as much opportunity as other people. And that's, I feel like, how much of a disservice would I do if I didn't speak to that? Why?
Yeah.
Why would I do that? I wouldn't want to set anyone up for false hope. And I think that the stories of my youth, of our youth really, set everybody up like, God, and now I'm seeing so much discourse around how unhealthy and fantastical romantic love has been built up by the stories of our youth, right?
Yep.
So when I think about those stories and how much they're encoded into my DNA, and I'm like, wow, I was really set up. I was really set up for the okie doke there, because I have some idea that's been reinforced again and again and again through all these narratives. And it's nothing like that.
Yep.
It's nothing like that. So I didn't want to do a disservice. If I am specifically designing this as a story by us, for us, to be specifically targeted towards Black youth, then it's gonna get dark. Like, it's gonna get it's gonna get uncomfortable. And that, even as a child, and both my generation and my parents' generation, even as children, we've experienced some pretty bleak moments of racism and prejudice and just mistreatment. And I think that I would like to prepare children for that experience.
Yep.
Rather than pretend that it's not there.
Yep.
And pretend that the world is a better place than it is. So those are the kind of stories that I tell. Now, don't get me wrong. There's lots of humor, there's lots of levity, there's lots of, zaniness,
Mm.
and
Yep.
there's a heavy, heavy ass dose of reality.
Mm-hmm.
And that's always been my experience, even from childhood, is that, I had a happy-go-lucky childhood for the most part, but oh
Yeah.
boy.
Yeah. And I think that's also what makes this piece like so well-rounded and encapsulating. Like you could feel that through the kids watching it. Like it's just, I really hope this gets picked up because I also think it's a piece, like I get it, money shmoney. But I think like even like this touring to schools, right? Or having a company do it. Like, I don't know, like Roseneath doing it as part of their tour cycle. I just think it needs to reach, especially like start even just in the GTA. Like it just needs to reach more kids than it did. Because again, Ryan and I walked out of there being like, this is going to be my swear word of the episode. Holy shit. Yeah. So I hope Sweeter definitely has more life. Because yeah, all of what you said, like we were able to feel that and see that through the kids watching. I actually think there was some kids were being like vocal in the experience too, of like, yeah, like that's not fair or this and that. And it's like, okay, so also they're witnessing their, feeling how they're feeling, and then they're wanting to act upon it. And I'm like, great, then that's the next step, right? Of again, myself, I'm a huge advocate of not only kids experiencing art, but what does the world look like for the generations below us? And I think more of our older generations need to have that mindset of like, we're not gonna be the ones that are on Earth longer than the ones that are younger than us, if that makes sense, like how I've said that. And so it's always like taking care of the upcoming generations, or like you said, like preparing them for that, especially post-pandemic and the political world we live in right now too. Things are already a hot dumpster fire, but they're cooking up to be something nastier, probably, potentially. So yeah.
I think naivete is really dangerous.
1000%. Yep. I said it again. 1000%. That's my motto for this episode.
Very dangerous. I don't think we live in a world where you can afford that.
No. And like I said, like the generations below us are smarter than us in a lot of ways. And this isn't, I feel like, so many people, even like my parents' age, are like, okay, well, like the hippies thought that too, or whatever. I'm like, no. I think now there's just like facts now because we have computers in the palm of our hands and we have, a little bit more open dialogue of talking about certain things and advocating for certain things. Like, I think there needs to be a little bit more of the generations upcoming. It's our duty to kind of expose them to what they're going to be exposed to, because they're actually going to have the regulation and the tool sets to potentially change things. And it's up to us to provide that tool belt. They have the tools. We just have to give them the belts.
Oof. Well said.
Yeah. Okay, this episode is yes. Okay. Let's get into Brown Eyes too.
Yes.
We're okay to pivot to
of course.
current project.
Yes.
So we've talked about how, yes, you wear very many hats, performer, playwright. Now this project, Brown Eyes, you are collaborating with Sasha Dennis, amazing friend and creator and performer as well. Dive into Brown Eyes. What are folks? So it's a full-length musical workshop upcoming, correct?
Yes.
Great. And it's coming in December.
Yes.
Right around the corner.
I know.
So yeah, Mateo, a great friend too, Mateo Chavez Lewis, is working on it with the two of you as well. Tell us about the musical's origin, about the
Ah.
journey thus far. What are we going to expect?
Well, we begin 5 years ago when Sasha Dennis is pitching a concept production of Ragtime, the musical, where she wants to take Ragtime and modernize it. So she wants to adjust some of the historical figures into modern day ones. So instead of Thurgood Marshall, the character will be represented by Barack Obama.
Mm.
And then I forget who she wanted to replace, like the activism character with Emma Gonzalez, and just a few other things that made it more topical and relevant for today. And
Yeah.
for anyone listening, Ragtime takes place at the turn of the century from the 1800s into the 1900s. So the unfortunate thing about Ragtime is that it essentially disposes of Black people. And I use that word intentionally. It disposes of Black people in a very violent and brutal way for the sake of the storytelling. So we witness the deaths throughout the course of the show. We witness 2 deaths that are so brutal and so unnecessary. And they're scripted to happen on stage, which it was originally, so the Ragtime, the book that it's adapted from is written by a man called E.L. Doctorow. He wrote it in the 70s. And then the musical, the popular musical that ran for many, many years on Broadway, off Broadway, world tours, what have you, was very popular. If I'm not mistaken, one of the most popular musicals in the 90s and early aughts, second to like, Phantom and several others. But to be honest, really surprising how thoughtless that was. But given the time period before, I call anything before 2020 like the year that everyone cared about Black people.
Yeah.
So anything that happened before 2020, it was like, what do we need for a plot point? Let's kill them all. So what happens in Ragtime is the white people of that story have a revelation of sorts after the Black people die so brutally, right? They have this come to Jesus moment where they suddenly develop much more empathy and they start to become more tolerant of other races and ethnicities that are slowly coming into the Americas at the turn of the century with more industrialization. So we have more steam powered boats, which means that more immigrants are coming from Europe and from, the Caribbean, Latin America, wherever.
Yeah.
It's an allegory of saying, like, well, there can be bad consequences to prejudice and racism. So we should all learn from this mistake, and this tragic death didn't have to happen, and so on and so forth. Does that sound familiar? Because so many years later, we find ourselves in the same loop where a Black person dies and then the world mourns. And then we say, this is terrible. What are we going to do about it? And there's prayers and vigils and protests and everything. And everyone's like, we swear we're going to do better. And then it happens again. It's like rinse and repeat.
Yeah.
So I'm at this reading of this show, Ragtime the musical, and I'm pissed. And I'm like, I'm not interested in this story. I'm not interested in the white apology narrative. I'm not interested in the story where Black people have to die in order to teach white people and everybody else a lesson. I'm not. I don't want to do it. I'm much more interested in the Black folks in the story because they don't have the dignity of character development. We don't know where they come from. We don't know their origins. We don't know their family. We don't know anything about them. They just arrive magically into the story world. And we have no preamble for them. It's very bizarre.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, not knowing at the time what it would mean, but I said in the talkback after the staged reading of the show, I said, I would rather watch a show where we get to know these Black folks and maybe not kill them.
Yeah.
I don't know. I imagine a world in which they don't have to die.
Mm.
and maybe we get to see them fall in love.
Yeah.
And then it got real quiet. And then they moved on to the next question, but I said what I said.
Yes.
So then Sasha approached me a couple days later. We would go to the Chipotle where over chips and guac, she would propose an idea. True story. She was like, "You want to hang out? Meet me at the Chipotle." Okay. So we're having burritos and whatnot. And she's like, "I like that story too. The one that you said that you wanted. Do you want to make that story with me?" And I was like, I don't write musicals. I don't know how to do that. I wouldn't know the first thing because I don't sight read. I'm not a librettist. So I was like, listen, I can write words, but I don't know how to make songs and structure, and I don't know anything about that. And she's like, I don't care. I want you. It's like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Okay. So I thought about it for like a day, and then I thought, this could be a tremendous opportunity. It scares the piss out of me, and I don't think I'll be good, but let's see what happens.
Yeah. That's
So
all we have to do. Yeah.
thus began a 5-year journey of writing a musical and me not knowing what the hell I'm doing. Me like writing the book, writing the scenes that happen in between, brilliant, fantastic, a dream, feels so safe. But me tackling songwriting has been just the right amount of terrifying. Just like, okay, this could be bad. And sometimes I'll do a draft and I know it's kind of bad, but then I'll keep going and I'll keep revising it. And a very wise person once told me that a song is essentially a poem more than anything. And then eventually you make a melody out of it. And I've been a poet for a long time. So I know how to write poetry. I know how to write like heightened text. That's fine. But the idea of writing heightened text and then making it sound a certain way, like assigning a tempo, a rhythm, a melody, that was the challenge. The words are fine.
Yeah.
Getting the syllables to add up in such a way to convey the message and also getting them to sound in a way to convey the message. And so a perfect example is a song that I wrote. So Mateo Chavez Luis is our music dramaturg.
Mhm.
And I wrote the song and I was so proud of it. And it sounded so pretty. And even though I'm like not as trained of a singer, I have dabbled in musical theater. And so I was like, I sang it and I thought I did a pretty good job. I was like, isn't it so pretty? And
Yeah.
then Mateo, being the brilliant dramaturg and himself a librettist and composer, says to me, it's a pretty song. Now, do you think that this character, being as pragmatic and as much of a control freak and as, emotionally stunted as you've written, do you think they would sing in this pretty way? And I was like,
Mm.
oh no. So then I revised it into something that's much more staccato and sharp and measured because the character is so conservative and buttoned up and so repressed
Yeah.
that she would have these lovely melodic runs and she wouldn't have that
Yeah.
because that's not who she is. Who she is she's uptight and strict and very repressed. And so
Yeah.
the way that she sings is very on the beat.
Yeah.
And even that blew my brain apart, was this notion that characterization happens through melody in the same way that characterization happens through uh, the tempo of dialogue. Like some characters speak in long, highfalutin phrases that go on for lines and lines and lines.
Mm-hmm.
Some characters just say a single word.
Yep.
And it depends on how much they're willing to offer, how self-aware I've written that character, how introverted, how extroverted. how much they have to lose and how much they're holding themselves tight. And so for me to have to translate that into song form is to say the personality of this character is, this buttoned up housewife that doesn't get to express how she truly feels. How is she going to sing?
Yeah.
Ah.
Hmm.
So some of those rewrites have been really eye-opening to get to witness, like, how am I characterizing through song?
Right.
And that's been such a challenge, um because sometimes I really miss the mark. Like sometimes I'm way off, and either Sasha or Mateo or both of them have to say, but is
Right.
character, or is this you liking the way that it sounds? I'm like, this is definitely me.
But I feel like in those moments, like you also being an actor performer, it probably makes that light bulb switch so easy, right? Like you're
Yeah.
able to be like, oh, right. When I flip back to like character mode or put myself in the shoes of this character, it makes sense. Like what Sasha and Mateo are
Yeah.
illuminating. Do you feel that way?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Because I have these moments where I get really into a groove and I'm like, this feels good.
Hmm.
It's not correct, it's not appropriate, but it feels good
Right.
time. And I have to be able to compartmentalize between what is appropriate, what serves, versus what feels good. Maybe what feels good is to have this like smooth, sexy ballad, and I'm
Yeah.
feeling and I'm grooving and I'm having the best time. But that is not correct, because that's not who this character is. And
Mm,
therefore, they're not going to sing in that way. This isn't going to be the song that they sing.
right.
So it's me coming to terms with like, oh no, I wanted it, but it cannot be.
Yeah. Fair, fair.
Yeah. So it's been a welcome challenge to discover how to write music and how to write songs and how to write harmonies, and learning so much vocabulary that, me as somebody who didn't study music theory in any way, and I did like a couple classes in middle school, and then I think I did a little bit in college, but just sporadically here or there, but just trying to understand um, music theory and you know major chords, minor chords, whether or not we resolve something. And then a convention that my writing partner Sasha is deliberately trying to break is the notion of the applause break, which
Mhm.
in many musical theater shows, when you, after a big number, the audience then rewards you with the applause. So you hit the final note, the music resolves, and then we all clap. So something that she introduced, which I really like, is that she's like, we're going to drive past the applause break and interrupt a lot of the songs. So the notion is that we are deliberately making the audience uncomfortable. You don't get the release, and you also don't get to sit back and feel like everything's okay.
Yep.
Everything's not okay. In our story world, we're writing about a dystopian future. So the
Hmm.
notion of no applause break means you don't get to relax.
Yep.
You don't get to sit back and then, tap your foot to the song and feel good about it. It's something that should keep you a little bit wiggly and a little
Yeah.
bit. So, without any spoils, because I know eventually this is going to be a produced show and you'll see it. But for example, there's one big, huge number that gets interrupted by a kidnapping.
Hey.
And oh boy, oh hell, it's like
Cool.
somebody gets snatched in the middle of the song and just they're gone. And
Okay.
so by the end of it, you see them hauled off and you're like, huh, yeah, how are you going to applaud for that? Of course you can, or you
Yep.
should.
Yep.
Um, so it's things like this that we're aware of what the rules are, and there are ways that we're deliberately breaking those rules to
Love that.
prove a point.
Yeah.
So I don't believe similarly to theater for young audiences, I don't believe that the sole function of a show is escapism, and the sole function of a show is to make everybody feel comfortable. I think theater should agitate you, at least some. I think it should make you a little
Yes.
more alert, and it should provoke something in you.
Yep.
Otherwise, why are you here?
Yeah.
Why are
Watch your iPad. Yeah.
go, watch Netflix. If you
Yeah.
didn't come to be challenged in some way, why are you here?
Yep.
So I love this notion that rather than people, oh, it's a pretty song and now we clap, it's like, oh, that's a great song. Oh, and then it's on to the next.
Yeah.
So there's never that moment of like, we don't release the pressure valve until
Good.
the
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's been wicked. It's been wicked fun.
So the team is kidnapping the clap, which we love that.
Ooh, yes.
Kidnapping the action of the clapping.
Yes. And I think it's going to frustrate people a lot. I think it's going to be like, oh man, like we even had somebody in the last workshop. We had somebody say, well, it starts off really funny and then, is it a comedy? Is it a thriller? Is it a drama? It's sci-fi. And the answer is yes.
Yes. That's the point.
Oh, point is that you're not supposed to say, yes, I can identify it is this genre and this is what it is. Of course not. What's the fun in that? So that's the notion that I like to break, is this notion that this is a story that is sad and therefore this is a tragedy. This is a story that is funny and therefore it is a comedy.
Yeah.
Life is never that. You could be laughing at a funeral. You could be crying at your wedding day. Come on.
You mean all the stories we grew up with, Alicia, that was once upon a time and then the end? You mean that? That's what we're breaking? Great. I love that for us.
You know?
Once upon a time and then the end. Big giant steamroller squashing that away. Yes.
So it's a lot of things, and we set it in the future because we're extra crazy.
I love that. Yeah. So what's a little brief little synopsis of Brown Eyes?
Oh yes.
Yeah.
So our protagonist is a young Black ingenue who is navigating a future dystopia, and the premise is that she is a DJ and she is trying to make it big. But there's also an impending fascist regime that's taking over the country. And this regime, alongside of the encroaching technology, is pretty much determining how citizens move and act, and restricting them in a lot of ways. So it's ever more encroaching and restricting people's rights. So she is at a crossroads where she desperately wants to break out of her shell and become this famous DJ. But at the same time, there's another pull for her to try to escape the country altogether. So will she find her escape? We have yet to see. But yeah, it asks us a lot of questions about, is technology, at what point is technology no longer good for us? Like how far does it serve us before it becomes a menace? And is technology, what are one of the questions we ask? Can technology and privacy coexist?
Whoa.
The more we advance the one, do we sacrifice the other?
Yeah, that's huge. Again, seems like such a simple sort of concept to gobble, but because we're so wrapped up in the rat race and in instant gratification, I doubt any of us ask ourselves that question, right? Is one side sacrificing the other? Wow. Yeah.
So we just decided to have a really crazy thought experiment where if we took everything that we have in terms of AI and technology and, safety precautions and everything, we just turn the dial up. And so the story is set in 2070. What would happen if when you entered a room, you had to do a retina scan? If Siri or Google Home detected your temperature and told you when you were sick before you knew about it, and all these things of oh, is this good? Maybe.
Right.
It might be, but then again,
Something that can be seen as convenient now in the future can be the opposite. Yeah.
yeah. So it's contending with all that and a lot of political contention that we didn't realize would come to fruition. Like in our story world, it is illegal to terminate a pregnancy. We didn't know. We wrote this in 2018 originally. We didn't know that there'd be an overturning of Roe v. Wade. We had no idea. We just
Right.
thought because there was so much talk of trying to overturn reproductive rights, we were like,
Right.
well, if that were to happen, how would that change the landscape? And so there were a lot of thought experiments that went awry, and we thought, well, let's see. So it's this crazy sci-fi fever dream that we have where
Yeah.
technology is a little bit out of hand. And
Okay.
yeah, it's some of
What
it.
a
Yeah,
poignant piece for today.
we didn't realize at the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
But here we are. Yeah, so it's a dystopian sci-fi thriller
Okay.
slash love story because two people meet and fall in love.
Yay. And this is happening. What are the dates and locations for this? This is the first time that there's going to be like a publicized workshop, correct?
Well, okay. So we have unfortunately limited seating.
Okay.
So we can't have a public, we have a small invited audience.
Yeah.
Um, so I can't exactly advertise it as of yet. I
Sure.
can tell you what it's called. Brown Eyes, a new musical.
Mm-hmm.
We are doing an artistic residency with bcurrent Performing Arts Company.
Right.
And we hope that next year, 2025,
Yeah.
we will have sort of an acoustic song cycle that we can present
Great.
as part of the programming for bcurrent Performing Arts Company.
Great.
But as of now, with the actual workshop, because we're performing it in a church, because that was the affordable venue,
Mm-hmm.
we have only so many seats.
That's
And
okay.
so we are inviting a bunch of artistic directors, dramaturgs, directors, so on and so forth, in the hopes that, we can get it picked up. With any luck, we get a program by 2027. But let me give you, I know you want the social media handles.
Yes, please.
So my handle is a little strange because my nephew used to call me Lishi because he couldn't seem to pronounce my full name, which is Alicia, but
Yeah.
Auntie Lishi. Auntie
Cute.
Lishi. So my Instagram handle is Lishi Loves You. So it's LeeSheeLovesyou. Lishi Loves You.
Perfect. We will pop that down below in the description as well.
Yes. And then for bcurrent, my host companies, so sometimes they post about us.
Great.
So bcurrent. So our bcurrent's handle is just the letter B current live. So it's
Great.
bcurrentlive. bcurrent live.
Amazing. Again, we will pop that down below as well.
Yes.
Great. This has been such a great conversation, Alicia. Literally from your foundation to the foundation of this upcoming project and everything in between, the foundation of the generations to come. Yeah, you brought us through the window of tolerance and how to expand that foundation. I feel like wow. Thank you so much for being a part of the show. I say this all the time with my interviewees. It also gives me a chance, Jill, to get to know fellow colleagues and artists in the industry, especially ones like yourself that have been in my orb in some shape or form. And we just had the time the past 2 hours to sit down and just open up and get to learn more about each other too, which again, I find is such an important facet of our work, right? Being in community and hearing each other's voices and supporting everything we have going on. So yeah, I'm very glad that interview with Alicia Richardson is in the bag.
Yay! Oh, it's been a treat. Thank you. I feel honored. I feel
Of
very
course.
cherished. Thank you. Thank you for the time and the attention. I appreciate it.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I know our viewers and listeners they have a treat on their hands.
Aw.
Yay! So on that note, let's grab our mugs, our glasses, and on this chilly November Eve, we will give a cheers and stay healthy, everyone. Keep your eyes and ears peeled to Cup of Hemlock. If you're watching, listening, you know where to follow us on all the social handles. We've got wonderful sort of coverage of shows and more interviews coming out as we round out 2024 and into the new year too. So we look forward to all that is to come. Cheers, folks. Thanks, Alicia.